Coming up on Arirang News. Thousands of lives have been lost in Turkey and Syria from the deadly earthquakes, but the death toll is expected to rise further in the coming days. Desperate search and rescue operations are underway with rescuers dispatched from both home and abroad. Following by progress reports by government ministries to the president, the Yoon administration sets out its key 20 projects to accomplish. This includes reforming labor, education, and the national pension system, as well as promoting major export items. Skies in Korea have remained murky for 2 straight days due to high fine dust levels in the country. Fine dust advisories have been issued in some regions, and authorities are expanding emergency measures. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in South Korea. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We begin with deadly earthquakes that have left thousands dead in Turkey and Syria, while survivors are having to endure freezing conditions. And the WHO has warned that the death toll could rise to more than 4 times the current figure. Lee Jae-yeon leads our coverage tonight.
More than 5,000 killed, thousands injured, and an unknown number trapped in the rubble. Freezing winter weather is making it worse for those left injured or homeless after 2 massive earthquakes struck Turkey and the northwest Syria on Monday.
Our houses have been damaged. We cannot go inside. We haven't eaten anything since morning. Our children are very hungry. May God protect all of us.
And some are racing to find survivors.
We heard them. They're calling out asking for help, asking to be rescued. We cannot rescue them. How can we rescue them? Nobody has come since this morning. Nobody.
7.8 and 7.5 magnitude earthquakes were the most powerful in the region in at least a century. The first, the early morning 7.8 magnitude quake and dozens of aftershocks left at least 3,400 dead in Turkey, according to the country's vice president Fuat Oktay. And death figures in Syria are currently at around 1,600, confirmed by the Damascus government and rescue workers. However, the WHO has warned that the number of deaths could rise to around 20,000 in the coming days due to the potential for further collapses. Turkey's disaster management authorities said more than 7,800 people have been rescued across 10 provinces. The authorities also reported at least 5,600 collapsed buildings in the country during and after the quakes. Similar devastation has been reported in northern Syria as well. Around 4 million people in northern Syria were already displaced and relying on humanitarian support as a result of the country's ongoing war. Meanwhile, the United States Geological Survey said at least 100 aftershocks measuring 4.0 or greater have occurred since the first earthquake. Lee Jae-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea is among the international community to send a team of rescue workers and medical supplies following the devastating earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. The U.S., China, and Greece also offer their assistance. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji reports.
With thousands of people waiting desperately to be rescued following the powerful earthquakes in Turkey, the South Korean government has decided to send more than 100 rescue workers and offer $5 million in humanitarian assistance. President Yoon on Tuesday sent his condolences and ordered officials to send a rescue team and medical supplies quickly, describing Turkey as a brother nation that sent troops to fight alongside South Korea during the Korean War from 1950 to 1953.
형제 국가의 피를 피해가 겪는 고통과 어려움을 돕는 것은 너무나 당연한 일입니다.
Following President Yoon's remarks, Seoul's foreign ministry held a meeting with related ministries on Tuesday afternoon and said a KC-330 military transport aircraft will be dispatched with a 110-member rescue team and medical supplies on board. The team will be comprised of 50 military personnel and more than 60 members of the Korea Disaster Relief Team. This is the first time that South Korea has decided to send this many rescue workers at once to another country. Other countries around the world, including the US, China, Finland, Sweden, and Israel, are also rushing to send rescue workers, equipment, and aid.
Anything Turkey needed that we could provide, they should pick up the phone and let us know. We stand ready, as an ally should, to help our ally in a time of need.
Even countries that have strained relations with Turkey, including Greece, offered assistance by sending a team of emergency rescue workers and dogs to assist in rescue efforts.
We will go there, we will see, and we will handle it. Our job at the moment is to assist as much as we can with the live victims that are trapped.
배은지, 아리랑 뉴스.
The Yoon administration today unveiled 20 key goals to promote. While the reforms in labor, education, and pension had already been hinted at, President Yoon added others to the list, such as reforms for the public sector. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon has the details.
Labor practice reformation based on the rule of law is the Yoon administration's top priority, with it being number one of the 20 key tasks announced by the presidential office on Tuesday. This means instilling the rule of law between labor unions and employers and modernizing labor-related policies while also tackling labor market segmentation. The list comes as the president was briefed by 22 ministries and agencies across December and January. And during Tuesday's cabinet meeting in the country's administrative capital, Sejong Government Complex, the list was the main agenda.
어떻게 시장을 조성하고 어떻게 시장을 공정하게 관리할 것인지, 어떠한 인센티브를 제공해서 민간이 자율과 창의를 바탕으로 다양한 상품과 서비스 그리고 경제적 가치가 창출되도록 할 것인지에 대해서 심도 있게 논의했습니다.
Reforming the education sector and the national pension system came number 2 and 3, respectively, tasks Yoon has talked about previously. But a new reformation effort was also announced, the public service sector.
공직자들의 마인드가 바뀌지 않으면 경제 전쟁에서 살아남기 어렵습니다. 보다 민첩하고 유연한 정부로 거듭나야 하겠습니다. 또한 민간 수준의 유연한 인사 시스템과 파격적인 성과주의도 도입해서 활력이 넘치는 공직사회를 만들어야 합니다.
In fact, following the cabinet meeting, he sat down with 150 government employees, with around half of them being millennials or Gen Z. He took his time to explain his vision for the young public service workers while listening to what they had to say. Also, among the tasks, a few of them centered around new technology. One of them being to foster startups and the other being to foster key strategic technologies such as the space industry. The president also took time to visit the nation's main science city, Daejeon, around 30 kilometers from Sejong. Meeting with startup founders at Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology's business incubator, he emphasized his motivation to support those in tech.
정부가 국정을 이념이 아니라 과학에 맞추고 또 글로벌 스탠다드에 맞춰서 세계 최고의 혁신 허브를 지향할 때 우리 기업들도 세계 기업들을 뛰어넘을 수 있을 것입니다.
Other items on the list include efforts to boost the economy as well as creating a science-based safety control system. The presidential office said that a task force will be formed to help with the cooperation among agencies and ministries in promoting the 20 tasks. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea's Ministry of Unification today unveils its fourth master plan to resolve issues regarding families that have been separated by the Korean War decades ago. Many now in their 80s or older, the plan details the ministry's intention to mobilize all available means. Jung Eun-ju reports.
South Korea's Ministry of Unification plans to mobilize all available means to resolve issues surrounding families that were separated by the Korean War. Under the fourth master plan for the promotion of exchanges between separated families announced on Tuesday, the ministry said it will prioritize identifying whether separated families have relatives in North Korea that are still alive. The urgency on this issue comes as more elderly people have died without having had the chance to meet their kin in the north. According to government data, more than 10,000 South Koreans died over the past 3 years. Almost 66% of surviving members are aged 80 or older. South Korea's Ministry of Unification formulates a new master plan every 3 years. The fourth will be valid between 2023 and 2025 and will have 4 major tasks. First, to resume exchanges among separated families by expanding and regularizing face-to-face meetings or video reunions and holding video-based events. Establish a foundation for exchange between separated families and diversify reunion methods. Confirmation of life or death, hometown visits, and the exchanging of video messages will also be discussed and promoted with North Korea. The government will strive to resolve the issues of prisoners of war, abductees, and detainees and spread consensus at home and abroad regarding separated families. According to the government, a total of 6 South Koreans have been detained in North Korea since 2013. Since the first Inter-Korean Summit in 2000, the two Koreas have held 21 rounds of face-to-face family reunion events, including the latest one in August 2018. But state-arranged family reunions have been halted amid frosty inter-Korean relations. 정은주, Arirang News.
It appears North Korea has established a new state bureau in charge of its missile programs. Based on photos released Tuesday showing a meeting of the ruling Workers' Party's Central Military Commission, an organizational flag bearing the name Missile Bureau was seen behind regime leader Kim Jong-un. Its logo was a missile over the planet Earth, presumably representing the Hwasong-17, the North's latest intercontinental missile. Also visible are the digits 016, indicating that the organization was established in 2016. The missile organization has never been mentioned in previous state media reports. Seoul Central District Court has ordered the government to compensate a Vietnamese victim of atrocities by South Korean troops during the Vietnam War. 30 million won, or around $24,000 will be paid to Nguyen Thi Ton, who filed a suit in 2020. 63-year-old Nguyen had said that she lost family members and suffered wounds herself when South Korean Marines killed around 70 civilians in her hometown in Vietnam's central province of Quang Nam in 1968. The court acknowledged most of Nguyen's claims based on testimonies and evidence from Vietnamese war veterans and village militias at the time. The ruling marked the first legal acknowledgement of the country's liability for atrocities during the Vietnam War, potentially paving the way for other victims to seek compensation. This winter saw the public's heating bills jump in South Korea, leading to friction in parliament over who should be held responsible and to what extent the current government should offer help. Answering lawmakers this afternoon, the nation's prime minister said rate hikes, albeit unpopular, are necessary to keep the country's finances sound. Our National Assembly correspondent Han Sung-woo has more.
Officials from the Yoon Suk-yeol administration took part in the second day of this year's first parliamentary Q&A session at the National Assembly, where lawmakers demanded answers for the current state of the nation's economy, the rise in heating costs in particular. Questioned by the main opposition Democratic Party of Korea, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo defended the government's decision to raise heating bills and energy costs, saying the government has to prioritize sound finances over its popularity.
Mr. Prime Minister, tell me then, what is the government for?
The government's responsible for making sure South Korea is financially sound and properly recognized as so, both domestically and internationally. A populist government is not what we need.
The opposition accused the government of shifting the blame onto the Moon Jae-in administration and suggested expanding support measures to the wider public. To that, the Prime Minister said energy vouchers and discounts should be focused primarily on the socioeconomically vulnerable. The ruling People Power Party, meanwhile, blamed the cost hikes on years of the previous administration's nuclear phase-out policy and accused it of freezing the energy rates for far too long.
Why do you think the previous administration ignored the Korea Gas Corporation's requests for rate hikes?
Liquefied natural gas costs began rising in early 2021 and soared in the second half of the year. Had the economy been taken into account, they would have increased the rates. That would have been the desirable option. There were several other considerations being made at the time, I believe.
Prime Minister Han, meanwhile, opposed the idea of imposing a windfall tax on energy companies, and also told lawmakers that supplementary budget bills for now are unnecessary. Scheduled for Wednesday afternoon is another questioning session on education, society, and culture. But grabbing the headlines will be the opposition's ongoing impeachment motion against Interior Minister Lee Sang-min over the government's alleged inadequate response to the Itaewon crowd crush, which the Democratic Party, holding a majority in parliament, could pass unilaterally. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
Currently, South Korea allows non-citizens, permanent residents to vote in regional elections. But recently, there have been voices calling for a change in the suffrage system. Our National Assembly correspondent Lee Si-hoo takes a look into non-citizens' right to vote here in South Korea.
In 2005, South Korea became the first Asian country to allow non-citizens who are permanent residents to vote in local elections. Those eligible must be 18 or older and have held permanent resident status for at least 3 years. They can't vote in presidential elections or for National Assembly seats, but they are able to vote for regional leaders, which include governors of provinces and city mayors. South Korea had a specific motivation in adopting this policy.
Because of our unique history, there are lots of overseas Koreans living in China and Japan. But they had little political voice in those countries despite their population and economic power. We decided to take the lead in granting suffrage to foreigners, as that can serve as grounds for enabling the overseas Koreans' right to vote in the countries of their residence.
But recently, some lawmakers have pushed for reform in the current suffrage system so that it is based on reciprocity.
Reciprocity is the main rule when it comes to international relations, whether it be in the economy or in politics. So I think it's necessary to only allow voting rights for citizens of countries that also allow voting for overseas Koreans. I think this will help reflect the exact opinions of the citizens.
Hong added that he hopes the change will encourage more foreigners in South Korea to naturalize and become South Korean citizens, helping population issues. A city council member who in the past was a Chinese citizen but later became a Korean citizen explains that we should view permanent residents as part of our community and acknowledge their rights.
There was a change in my expectations for Korea and the direction of life once I was eligible to vote. Other foreigners I know also say that the right to vote has helped them with their life in Korea.
Opinions vary among the non-citizens themselves.
I think it's okay. If they stay 3 years and work here and they don't have any problems with law, and why not?
I think the voting is the right for the citizens. If you are a citizen, then you can vote. If you are not, like I am not a citizen, so I don't have a right, and I should not have a right for that.
As for how much impact voting by non-citizens has on the results of the election, experts say it is actually minimal. As of last year, 120,000 permanent residents were eligible to vote. Of them, only around 13% had been known to vote in local elections. But the value of suffrage goes beyond just the numbers. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
South Korea's foreign exchange market may extend its operating hours and open up trading to offshore firms. That's according to local financial authorities today. It could be the first big change in more than 70 years. Our finance correspondent Kim Hyun-sung with all the details.
South Korea's foreign exchange market is likely going to see some big changes as early as next year. The finance ministry on Tuesday announced a proposal to double the foreign exchange trading hours, so the market will be open until 2 a.m. This in a bill to be submitted to the National Assembly in the third quarter of the year and, if passed, likely to be implemented in the second half of next year. Eventually, it said closing time in the foreign exchange market could be done away with altogether. The government also intends to invite offshore firms to trade, including global banks and brokerage houses. Currently, only local financial institutions with the government's approval stamp are allowed to trade. The South Korean foreign exchange market has been long due for a shakeup, seen as having been stagnant for the past 70 years. There's been a reluctance to reform due to the trauma of several financial crises over the decades. But the government is now looking to change practices it sees as outdated and restrictive to capital flows and market growth. An official at the Finance Ministry said Tuesday that foreign exchange is a road that transports capital around the world, and that South Korea's road is narrow, worn out, and no longer fit to accommodate the growing market demand. The government hopes that this change will also raise the status of the Korean won in the global market while decreasing the country's dependence on foreign currencies. This change, however, does come with some concerns about increased exchange rate volatility and trading focused on specific hours. However, the government assured those concerned that they will take these worries into account and make sure to minimize the risks. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
Fine dust levels in South Korea remain high for the second straight day. Authorities have decided to expand emergency measures to more parts of the country to reduce dust emissions. Song Yoo-jin reports.
Murky skies blanket South Korea on Tuesday. The National Institute of Environmental Research predicts the fine dust level will hit bad levels in the capital area, Chungcheongdo and Jeollado provinces, and Daegu City. Based on the Korean Meteorological Administration classifications, that means those areas will have fine dust concentrations of between 81 and 150 micrograms. An ultra-fine dust advisory has also been issued to the city of Incheon as well as Gyeonggi-do, Chungcheongbuk-do, and Jeollabuk-do provinces on Tuesday morning, with these areas seeing large amounts of ultra-fine dust particles, which are smaller than 2.5 micrometers in diameter. The Environment Ministry attributes this to a combination of air stagnation and smog coming from neighboring China. The ministry has deployed emergency fine dust reduction measures for the capital area and Sejong City for 2 straight days. They'll be in effect from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Tuesday. Under these measures, large-scale dust emitters such as coal power plants and construction areas must adjust or reduce their operation hours. The driving of Grade 5 diesel cars, the lowest of the country's 5 tiers of emission standards, will be banned. Water wagons and de-dusting cars will clean roads more frequently. And senior citizens or those with respiratory illnesses should refrain from going out and are advised to wear a mask if they go outdoors. The skies should clear from Wednesday afternoon. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Korean language classes are coming to the metaverse. South Korea's Culture Ministry and the King Sejong Institute Foundation announced on Tuesday that the classes will be offered on the King Sejong Institute Metaverse website starting in April. The King Sejong Institute promotes learning about Korean culture and language at its offices around the world. The website for the online classes is at sejong.metauniverse.net. Sign up has not yet begun, and the Institute has not announced how much the classes will cost, if anything. The Culture Ministry said there has been growing demand for Korean language classes because of the popularity of Korean culture. More in-person classes as of last September, it said there were more than 10,000 people on the waiting list.
Overall, dry and mild conditions will continue on for tomorrow. Maximum temperatures in Seoul will be warm at 7 degrees Celsius. And for eastern regions such as Gangwon-do province, light rain is in the forecast. Expect about 5 millimeters of rainfall coming and going. But keep in mind that conditions will stay dry as the amount of rainfall won't be enough to alleviate the extreme dryness. Tomorrow, southern parts of the country and Chungcheongdo provinces will see poor air quality. And for parts of central regions, including here in Seoul, air quality will temporarily stand in the bad category. Under such high concentrations of fine dust, it is highly recommended to refrain from outdoor activities. In the regions, we'll see clear skies for the morning hours. Tomorrow, Seoul and Daegu will be starting off at -2 degrees. As for the daily highs, Seoul will get up to 7 degrees, Daejeon 9, Gyeongju will be warm at 12 degrees Celsius. Daytime conditions will stay warm for the time being. On Friday, the entire nation will see a mix of rain or snowfall. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all for today's newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with the most up-to-date news tomorrow. Good night.